what type, if any, of deployment of cadres takes place to institutions with judicial functions?
You are on page 460.
At the foot of 460 to the top of 461.
And so what principle should?
The question is, what knowledge do you have of any deployment of cadres, which is to say ANC cadres, to institutions with judicial functions?
The judges are appointed by the Judicial Commission.
They are appointed by the President on the advice of the Judicial Service Commission. If it's High Court judges and Supreme Court of Appeal judges, they are appointed by the President. Is it on the recommendation of the Judicial Service Commission? If it's Constitutional Court judges, Deputy Chief Justice, Chief Justice.
Okay.
Yeah, the test is different. Yeah.
And the ANC doesn't interfere with that process. What it will do is that if there are vacancies advertised and there are experienced lawyers, they would advise them to avail themselves for that. That's why it's, the role of the deployment committee in this case will not be mandatory. It will be saying, Comrade Gwede, you are experienced enough, you are a senior counsel, you are of an advanced age of experience. We think you should apply to that commission. And then I get submitted to the process that everybody is subjected.
So is that what this is talking to?
Yes.
Well, I want to put to you that it just sounds inherently improbable that when an ANC, when the Secretary General of the African National Congress, or the former Secretary General, submits to the Commission that the ANC deployment policy results in the deployment of cadres to institutions with judicial functions, it doesn't look at face value as benign as merely encouraging people thought to have qualifications to apply for judicial appointment. The whole notion of deployment of cadres to institutions with judicial functions carries, with respect, a far more sinister ring than you were suggesting.
I think I'm not sharing the allergy.
Sorry?
I'm not sharing the allergy to deployment. I'm not allergic to deployment.
But I think what Mr.
The point, excuse me.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that because we have an interest in the state, in the economy, in organizational work, in ideological work, and racial work, those are the parameters of areas that we have an interest in. Therefore, where it is political, we are directly involved. Where it is institutional, we recommend and people go through those processes. So we don't appoint judges at any level, but we do encourage experienced legal practitioners to apply for position when vacancies appear. And that is the end of what we can do. We don't go and sit in the selection.
And when they do that, if they are cadres, loyal cadres, are they not bound by the policies that we've read and the resolutions that we've read, that they are accountable to the party?
I must confess that in my 10 years as Secretary General, I've never seen a queue of judges accounting to the ANC. I have no experience of that.
Yes, but I think this is the context of Mr. Freund's question. You remember before lunch you explained to me what we should understand when the ANC talks about deployment, what's involved. There is development of cadres, there is deployment of cadres. We talked about that, okay, preparing cadres of the ANC to be ready for various responsibilities in society and in the state, okay? So I think what Mr. Freund is saying is if we are to attach to the word deployment as used in this sentence the same meaning that you told us before lunch, it would seem that it's more than just encouraging practitioners to apply who are senior enough and experienced enough. I think that's what he is saying, Mr. Freund. Is that
Indeed,
what you're saying?
indeed.
So, and he is suggesting that there is some uneasiness about that if you talk about people who are going to be judges. I think that's the suggestion I'm reading.
Yes.
In. Yeah.
The real of the matter is that judges are not born judges.
Mm-hmm.
They go through a particular career development until at the apex of that process they become judges. And the reason I'm saying, when I was Secretary General for 10 years, I've never seen a queue of judges accounting to me. Actually, I can't remember a day where I had a discussion with a judge on anything. I may be a client of a judge for my sins in society. That's it. But I've never seen judges come to Laos to account, because one of the things that the ANC appreciate and understand is the separation of powers. We respect that. So we don't tamper with judges. We don't get into that space. But there's nothing that stops us to say, Advocate X, don't you think you have been practicing long enough to be a judge? Apply, because there are these vacancies that have emerged in the various courts. Please go and apply because you have gone through this process. That is at the tail end of a process of taking a young person to go into law and then say he must go and practice. In practice, why? And he grows in that process. Then there are vacancies. There's nothing that stops us to say that is a progressive judge. That will be a progressive judge. Please apply. Sometimes others do, and they fail in the process. And we have no recourse to deal with that because it's not our space. Others succeed and they become judges. Others that are very progressive when we consider them become very harsh judges in dealing with us. And we don't hold that against them. The judges, they do their work, and therefore, I don't know what is it that is peculiar about this.
Well, I get the impression from what you've just said that, as a matter of fact and to your knowledge, ANC deployment structures have encouraged people to apply for judicial office, cadres to apply for judicial office. Is that correct? That's correct.
Yes.
Yes. And you made the point that when it comes, for example, to the Judicial Services Commission, the decision lies there, subject to the provisions that involve the President as well. The decision really lies there as to who to appoint. And is it not a fact that the ANC representatives on the Judicial Services Commission have a power to bring about any decision they choose, the way the Judicial Services Commission is structured?
I have never served in the Judicial Services Council. I don't know how it works. I've never been a premier. But my understanding is that there are various divisions of the High Court in various provinces. The involvement of those premiers is in respect of the appointments in the divisions from their province. And therefore, I don't think there is a block vote by ANC representative in the Judicial Services Council. I don't think so. I have no evidence of that.
Yeah.
I've never served there. I can't give first-hand evidence.
Now, can I take you to page 591, 100.591?
591. I've got that.
Thank you. And just before I ask you about that, what I didn't ask you about the last document was about the bodies with investigative functions. It refers to cadres, you would say, being encouraged to apply for appointment to investigative functions. What do you have in mind there? What sort of bodies?
I know in 2021, to talk of apartheid is seen as taboo. Okay. What we forget is that from 1994 onwards, all these institutions, including investigative agencies, you find that they were mainly dominated by investigators from the previous regime. It was in the interest of society to deploy people to change the demographics of those institutions.
To change, presumably, not only the demographics, if I understand your evidence, but to change the political orientation to ensure that that political orientation would include people who are loyal, disciplined, committed members of the party.
I don't know if you know that in the negotiations for this constitution that we're having, key on the Nationalist Party side was the intelligence service. Okay. So it means that we're dealing with an investigating institution which has political orientation. Therefore, you wouldn't have just leave that like that and have that orientation continue. That's why it was important to actually change the demographics, change the orientation. You're right. Change the orientation so that it becomes, let me use your word, a non-partisan investigative unit. I don't know whether non-partisan means neutrality, being on the fence on everything. I don't know that. But I'm saying orientation of those institutions was necessary and it had to be effective. That's why we had to integrate people with various backgrounds in the discipline to have a new system coming to play.
Well, the issue you raise is in fact raised by the next document which I wish to refer you. Can we go please to page 591?
I'm there.
This is a meeting of the NWC. I see you were present at this meeting that was presumably chaired by the then President, President Jacob Zuma. And at page 592, there is a report, a minute on an NWC report, 592. See that?
Yes.
It's the item on the minutes dealing with the NWC report, which you presented. And you reported, amongst others, it would appear on deployment of ANC cadres. And then the minutes note the comments. And in the middle of page 592, we find the comment, "Deployees of the ANC should always be loyal to the organization." Now, that is a principle that you stand by, as I understand it.
Loyalty to the organization, if you are a member of, it's necessary. Why should you become a member
So
of an organization you're not loyal to.
All these institutions to which you are recommending that applications should be made for appointment, your intention, if those persons are appointed, is that once appointed, they must always remain loyal to the organization.
Let me give you an example that is almost irrelevant. Now, I'm a mine worker. When I went to the mines...
You used to be a mine worker, Mr. Mantashe.
I'm a mine worker.
On a lighter note, you used to be a mine worker.
I am a mine worker.
You're a minister now.
I'm back to being a mine worker.
Okay.
You know, a blessing certificate was reserved for a scheduled person. A blessing certificate. Meaning that blacks would not blast. They're not allowed. When the system is opened, it can be a mistake to deploy people who understand the urgency of change. To allow that. That applies to all the institutions in South Africa, because all of them were from an apartheid system which regarded people as less of humans. And therefore, to consciously intervene in that level and change the orientation cannot be a mistake.
But the problem is, I want to put to you, that there is a conflict between the principle of a non-partisan public service and a public service which, as a matter of strategy, is populated insofar as you can achieve that by persons whose loyalty is to the party. That is the exact antithesis of non-partisan.
We had cadres of our movement who went to London and studied. Others went to the United States and all of them. And they understand that when a Trump is kicked out of office and a Biden comes in, there's no hesitation in changing all the strategic positions and replacing it with people who are loyal to the Democratic Party. If you go to the British system, as the parties campaign, the state takes those manifestos and develop programs that are talking to those manifestos. Once the party wins, they shred all the others and implement this program. Now, if I understand the question directed to me properly, it says, the non-partisanship means ANC sleeping and hoping for luck and not have any interest in influencing the direction of change in society, which will actually talk to the reconstitution of the state to what it should be serving everybody. We are doing this in a state that has a long state. You know, I read Dominique Smith service. Dominique Smith described the words of Dr. Verwoerd very well. He says, Dr. Verwoerd was instilling a system of apartheid which had so deep roots that it would be impossible for future governments to change. Until you get involved, you don't realize the depth of those roots. And the question directed at me is that don't tamper with those roots. They will change automatically by being non-partisan, and luck will befall you. I'm saying deployment of people to institutions has a direct intent to say every institution must be transformed to serve the interests of all the society.
Well, I wonder whether this has got something to do, the question has something to do with this, namely whether there is any difficulty with the notion that out of the people that the party may have prepared for certain responsibilities, those that get appointed ultimately, let's say properly, to certain position, the party will not expect loyalty to them once they have been appointed to those positions, but it will be content with the knowledge that they subscribe to certain values, and because they subscribe to certain values, what they will do there while in those positions will not be in conflict with the party. Is that something that, is that notion something that exists?
The reality, Chairperson, is that there are many examples of disappointment. Okay. Many of people getting into positions expect to facilitate change. Instead, they get subsumed to the system. We have many examples of that. And that's why the ongoing effort is important. Otherwise, change is not going to happen. And that's it. So there's something that once you are deployed, there's no Secretary General or Deputy Secretary General of this who stand over your shoulders and monitor you. There's no such a thing. The assumption in good faith is that you will appreciate the urgency of the need for change. But there are cases of disappointment where people get there senior enough, knowledgeable enough, but when they get there, they get subsumed to the system. They get assimilated. And those are examples of setbacks that we should deal with on an ongoing basis. So there is no expectation that a judge is deployed to a particular court. He will hear a case and come to this and say, I had 3 cases and I ruled in favor of this. We don't want it.
Yeah.
There's no such a thing.
Now, I understand, particularly in the South African context, particularly given our history, that the ANC assumes power in a state of a wholly offensive previous disposition. And I can have no difficulty, I'm sure the Commission can have no difficulty, with obviously the transformational objectives of the Constitution and the policies of the African National Congress directed to achieving those transformational objectives of the Constitution. I want to put to you that in Section 197 of the Constitution, which governs the public service, it says that it governs the public administration in which there is a public service. If you have a copy, it might be helpful to have a look at it. 197.1. You don't have it. I'm sorry you don't. I'll read it to you. So 197.1, under the heading Public Service, says the following. Within public administration, there is a public service for the Republic, which must function and be structured in terms of national legislation.